First, let's start with this case. After healing from my divorce, I decided to refurnish my home to make it completely my own space. As part of the process, I cleaned out my wardrobe, linens, and even my cookware, getting rid of items I no longer wanted. To clear space for my new furniture and belongings, I called a junk removal service to take away the old items. They're quick, and everything is gone without me having to do any heavy lifting. When my sister came over and saw my updated space, she asked what I had done with all my old stuff. I told her I had it hauled away. She immediately got on my case about not offering any of it to her first. I rolled my eyes and asked hypothetically if she really needed a new sofa. Would she still sit on her busted one if I weren't getting rid of mine? By the end of the day, my other siblings and even my mom were calling and texting me, also berating me for not offering them a chance to take my old things. I don't feel like I owed them the opportunity to go through my used stuff. From what I can tell, none of them actually needed anything. I think they just liked the idea of getting free stuff. They also have a tendency to hoard, which is a lifestyle I refuse to adopt. Edit. Thank you to everyone who voted. You're not in the wrong. I hadn't even considered how offering them my things would have meant waiting for them to pick them up on their schedules, likely complaining in the process. It also would have turned my home into a cluttered mess while I waited, something I worked hard to avoid. To clarify, the junk removal service I use donates what it can. Some items are too broken, soiled, or obsolete to donate, and those items get discarded appropriately. For those who voted, you're in the wrong. I want to point out that the sofa example was hypothetical. I used it to show my sister that I know she wasn't interested in my old stuff because she needed it. She just wanted it because it would have been free. If I'd held a rummage sale for these items, none of them would have bothered to show up. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. It's your stuff. You can dispose of it however you want. And more important, you are not obligated to go through with the incredibly annoying effort of offering it up to people, then waiting for them to actually collect it. I've played that game before and learned to set time limits for pickup before it goes on the Craigslist free page, to the curb, or to the dump. No one is in the wrong. It's pretty normal to give away stuff like that, and is seen as wasteful with the current views on overconsumption and trash only adding to that. But there's also the reality that it's not always possible to do those things without a massive headache, or ending up with junk in your house for years while you try to get rid of it the right way. It's understandable that your family is upset that you didn't even try to pass along your perfectly good stuff before trashing it. But it's also understandable that you just wanted it over and done with in one swoop. Maybe just apologize for not having considered it. My biggest suggestion is maybe in the future you could check if any charity shops do pick up near you. Not everywhere, but not uncommon, before going to full junk removal, with the added bonus of telling your family it went to charity if they complain. You're in the wrong for throwing away what sounds like perfectly good stuff you just didn't want anymore, when it could have been donated. This is grossly wasteful. Next up, I'm a 35-year-old woman with a 13-year-old daughter who wants a quinceañera, but I'm uncomfortable spending that much money on one event. While I'm Hispanic and was born in the U.S., I'm not a traditional Mexican, and my kids are pretty Americanized. Here's where the conflict comes in. My daughter's father, 36, lives with his mom and pays nothing in child support because he's in debt, IRS and credit card debt. I pay for everything my daughter needs: school activities, sports, hobbies, clothes, trips, you name it. I don't ask her dad for help since he's already paying child support for another child from a previous relationship. I'm fortunate that my fiancé and I have a good income and are debt-free, but that's because we've made careful financial decisions. I work full-time, do contract work on the side, and I'm a part-time master's student at a local university, also debt-free. Recently, my ex brought up that our daughter wants a quinceañera and a party where all her family can come together. I told him I wasn't planning a traditional quinceañera, but I'd throw her a nice backyard party at our house, and he was welcome to attend. Our backyard is large and newly renovated, so it's a great space for an event. The other day, he mentioned that his cousin had a baby shower at a ranch-style venue that costs $3,000 for 250 people. He suggested it as an option, saying his family alone would make up 100 people. I freaked out, knowing how much work goes into planning a big event like that, especially when I'm already stretched thin. I told him this wasn't going to be a quinceañera, just a party with food, a DJ, and about 100 people total, including my close family and friends. His response? He said, "You're starting to really disappoint me." I told him I have a lot on my plate, with work, school, and other responsibilities, and I can't plan something that big or spend a lot of money on it. Quinceañeras are elaborate, involving a dress, dolls, waltzes, a court of honor, a band, and more. It's a huge financial and time commitment. He then gave me $200 and said he'd try to give me $100 every payday, which is more money than he's ever contributed since we split when our daughter was 1. Now, I'm feeling incredibly stressed. I have final exams this week and haven't slept well for 2 nights because of this. I'm considering giving him his money back and suggesting we each do what we can for our daughter separately. Talking to him feels pointless because he always makes me feel like I'm the bad person. Update. I was always planning to throw her a party. Not a lavish one, but something nice in our backyard. I've told her dad he's welcome to attend. What should I do? Should I stick to my plans, or am I being unreasonable? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You should be having this party discussion with your daughter, not him. He's not really contributing much of anything, so he really doesn't get a say. And she's only 13. Isn't a quince at 15? I'm super white, sorry. You're stressing 2 years early for this party. Talk to your daughter and see what she really wants and would be comfortable with. You're not in the wrong. You want our child to have a quinceañeras? Fine. You plan it and you pay for it. I will buy her dress. You're not in the wrong, but you're being way too nice to him. The deadbeat dad who never has supported his kid is disappointed in you? You? He should be eternally grateful you aren't dragging him into court over and over since he hasn't paid a penny for his child. If he wants to throw her a quinceañera, he has 2 years to save up and plan it all. He and his hundreds of family members can take up a collection if needed. If you want to throw her a party and are the one paying for it, then it's the way you want, not him. If he wants a say, he has to pay. Also, talk to your daughter and see what she actually wants. Next up, 2 years ago, my 76-year-old mother-in-law moved in with my husband and me after her husband, my husband's stepdad, passed away. My husband has always been the type to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He's also a high-functioning alcoholic. I mentally checked out of the marriage years ago, knowing I couldn't afford to leave financially and had to accept what I'd married. I've resigned myself to just living with it. When my MIL moved in, her health was already fragile, and there have been multiple hospitalizations since then. After each one, she's needed almost total care, which I've taken on around my full-time job. She bounces back, but I don't think she has much fight left in her. She has COPD and emphysema and still smokes heavily despite her condition. Recently, my own stepmom passed away about a year after my dad. It seems there may be a significant inheritance involved. This has left me questioning whether I'd be the idiot to use the money to finally leave this miserable situation that I've been trapped in for nearly a decade, or if I should wait until my MIL inevitably passes. Here's the situation. My husband doesn't care for her the way I do. Some days, he doesn't even check on her because he doesn't like going in her room. He doesn't understand how frail she really is and has even suggested she's exaggerating her symptoms for attention. He's always been a narcissist, but that's a story for another day. So, would I be wrong to use the inheritance to get out now, knowing it would likely leave my Mael without the care she needs? Or should I stay until she passes, even if it prolongs my misery? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. If you are concerned that he will neglect her, you can put in a call to Adult Protective Services and let them know the situation. There is an Adult Protective Services who are supposed to help make sure elderly people are being taken care of. I would not feel guilty for leaving, but I would personally contact the APS to keep an eye on her and make sure your ex is taking care of her. And if she does have money, that money can be used to pay for a facility that will care for her. You're not in the wrong. Keep checking on any inheritance. Was there a will? Who is the executor or administrator? Contact an attorney to get some basic info on how to make plans to leave. Not sure if you are in the U.S. or where, but check on county state laws. If a spouse is entitled to any inherited property/funds, could be your husband can't touch what you inherit. I hate to be blunt, but the mom is your husband's issue, not yours. I'm sure you have a good heart and have compassion. Bless you. But this is on him. Good luck, and I hope to see an update on that. You are packed, gone, in your new world. Next up, I am a 25-year-old woman, and I have a family situation involving a property shared by my mother, grandmother, and great-grandfather. My mother and grandmother share a house, while my great-grandfather had his own house next door. He passed away 2 years ago, and his house was left to my grandmother. Even before his passing, we had discussed that one day I would buy the house and half the property from my grandmother. We initially thought this would happen when I was around 30 years old, but obviously, these things are hard to predict. After his passing, I moved to a different city to be with my boyfriend, but we agreed that when we were ready to settle down, we'd move back and take over the property. While my grandmother was grieving and deciding whether to sell, my mother suggested my younger brother Luke, a 19-year-old man, and his girlfriend Emma, a 20-year-old woman, move into the house temporarily. The idea was for them to have some privacy and to keep up with chores, ensuring the house stayed in good condition. There were no major renovations or investments involved. This year, my grandmother decided she wants to sell the house next year to fund renovations on her own home. Yesterday, I visited, and my grandmother, mother, and I set a date to discuss how we'd proceed, costs, responsibilities, etc. During the conversation, Luke interrupted, saying he should be included because he also has an interest in buying the house. This was the first I'd heard of it. Apparently, my mother already knew, as she said our main concern should be keeping the house in the family. She suggested that Luke and I discuss later who would live in it and buy my grandmother out. I told them my plan. I intended to let Luke and Emma live there rent-free for the next few years while I focus on my career before settling down. However, I also said I wouldn't invest in the property unless I planned to make it my own someday. Property is expensive, and my boyfriend and I want to start investing now, before we have bigger financial responsibilities like children. Luke argued that since he and Emma have been living there for a while, it's unfair to expect them to leave when I decide to move back. I told him the alternative. He could pay the full amount to buy the house from our grandmother next year. Since he's a student with no part-time job, this isn't a realistic option. If neither of us buys it, our grandmother will sell it to a stranger. My brother and mother called me selfish, saying I'd get the money back if Luke bought the house from me in the future. But for me, it's not just about getting the money back. It's about the lifestyle cuts I'd have to make to pay off the loan, as well as the financial losses due to inflation. While I want the house to stay in the family, I feel like they're putting an unfair expectation on me and guilt-tripping me by calling me selfish. I don't think it's reasonable for me to invest in something unless it's part of my long-term plan. Am I being selfish, or are they putting too much pressure on me? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Let me rephrase their actual demand of you to the bare truth. You have to buy this house for us to live in however long we want with no obligation to you except a vague statement about buying from you eventually. Because Emily! See how crazy that is? Absolutely not. Unless you are independently wealthy and have no issues with supporting your brother indefinitely. Given his response to your saying that you will want the house eventually if you are the one buying it, essentially, how dare you ask us to ever move out of our house before we want to? I suspect you'll never get him out. Let the family do it in the process of selling it, or you'll forever be the one labeled evicted their own brother. You're not in the wrong. Your brother wants you to subsidize his life. Your family's desires should be used to put you in a crippling financial position. Don't let your mom and brother use emotions to manipulate you, and don't come to a verbal agreement. Being screwed on this can impact you for decades. If you're in the US, your BF may be unprotected unless he's part of a contract or you're married, so asking him to financially contribute is also an issue. This isn't some game, and your mom has shown she is willing to play games to get you to do what she wants. You cannot trust them to care about your financial interests when you're ready to sort it out. You're not in the wrong. I am always amused when people protecting their best interest are accused of being selfish by the actually selfish people who are trying to take advantage of them. Living rent-free is a huge favor. No one should be entitled to it on the back of someone who can't afford it. Your offer is very reasonable and generous. You are in a catch-22. No matter what you do, your mom and brother will be disappointed. So sit down with your BF and figure out what is best for you and whether purchasing this house is the best decision for you.